So Berliner Mag published a piece recently about the life of an escort in Berlin, and the piece was done by author named Bambi James, speaking about their experience as being a GFE worker in the industry. Now, if you don't know what GFE is, it means girlfriend experience, and it's when you are pretty much seeing your client as if you are their girlfriend, which this can mean a whole lot of things, like going on, very like elaborate dates, maybe not even an elaborate date, but just going on dates. It's more than just like the 1 hour in and out client, it's more like you are actually dating this person. So maybe they'll spend time with you a certain amount of times per week, go out with you to dinner, and in some other instances you might get the entire raw dog experience. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're gonna have to look that up. So as usual, the comment sections in these kinds of pieces where we're talking about spicy workers, it never disappoints. And there's a lot of ignorance and loud ignorance that comes from the general public around these conversations with escorting that I want to address, because quite frankly, I'm really tired of how allergic to learning and nuanced conversation the non-spicy worker population is when it comes to this industry. And what qualifies me for talking about this is that I've been a spicy worker for a big majority of my life, starting with dancing in the gentlemen's clubs, to being a phone operator back when 34th Street was still having that like in person, to being a full-blown e-worker and seeing clients sometimes by the hour. As well, I am a Black Spicy Worker advocate, and I do run a black organization that is for and by current and former Black spicy workers, as well as other migrants and so on. So anyway, the point is I have hella qualifications on this, including a undergrad and master's program where it was always enmeshed in my work. So let's get into it. So the very first thing I want to address in the article is that it opens up with a blurb from the piece where the author is talking about all of these lavish things that she has done, or they have done, I'm sorry, in being a GFE worker. And the very first thing I want to alert you all to is that please remember that in the general public, what they tend to do around spicy work is to only put it into categories. Either you're making a lot of money, or you're just poor. Those are the only two nuances. There's no in between, and there's a lot of in between in the industry with people who are making just regular money. So I want to just put that disclaimer out there that everybody in the industry is not going to be making a lot of money, and everybody in the industry is not necessarily dirt poor. But there is a lot of in between, and you can measure that a bit. And this is not unique just to escorting. It is really something that happens in any business. So as we move forward in this conversation, I want y'all to remember that being an escort or a spicy worker of any kind is literally just work. And to think that you either should be making a whole lot of money all the time in the industry makes absolutely no sense, because we do not expect that of every industry, regardless of what the profession is. We understand that there are people at the top, there are people in the middle, and there are people at the bottom. This is the same. So one of the first beefs I got in on that post was about somebody saying, oh great, so you're glamorizing sex work, you're glamorizing women being manipulated and being mistreated and being exploited, something to that extent. I'm going to find the exact comment and try to post it here. And you know what's really interesting about that is that when I responded, the person, I said, there's so many other industries where this happens to women, and I named off a bunch of them. And then the person came back to say, so your logic is that because women get exploited in this one industry, they should be exploited in this industry? And my response to that was, no, that is not what my logic is. My logic is simply this. Most people don't actually care about exploitation. I have been talking about this forever. You don't actually care about exploitation. You don't actually care about the exploitation of women or any other oppressed group. What you don't like is spicy work. You have a problem with it because it disrupts everything that you think about what society is, how women should function in that society, and what women should be allowed to do with their own bodies. Because if in fact we really cared about the exploitation of women, we would not be so giddy and happy to support mainstream entertainment where we know for a fact that there is a casting couch as well as the exploitation of children and young girls that happen within these industries. We're very happy to watch mainstream entertainment where we see our favorite $1 million actors and actresses getting plowed by simulation, or sometimes depending on who we're watching, really it's happening in front of our eyes to see, and we don't bat an eye. And you don't bat an eye typically because they're making a lot of money. And what greater achievement it is than to be the top earner in your industry of exploitation, so as long as the general public is getting their pleasure out of it. So miss me with the conversations about women being manipulated or objectified in the adult entertainment industry. You have no problem watching women get objectified on mainstream TV and in movies and in other forms of entertainment. Another conversation that came up in the thread was just about how dangerous the industry is. Again, you all don't give a fuck about danger. What you don't like is the fact that women are dominating an industry that you feel like they should just be giving to the patriarchy for free. Because there's so many dangerous jobs there that we find acceptable. Being a nurse or a doctor, absolutely fucking disgusting when you think about the kinds of things that they have to endure every day, psychologically, physically, emotionally. And just to throw off some other industries out there that you all don't consider, but of course you get something out of it and you think that it's a respectable position to be in, we can talk about mining, construction, commercial fishing, firefighter, oil and gas extraction. I can go on, right? So there's a lot of industries that are dangerous, not just to women, but to the general population. And you all don't bat an eye because, well, it's not actually women dominating the field, having bodily autonomy and making decisions for themselves, as well as making money. And specifically making money of something that men expect and often get for free and exploit or manipulate to get, thus you're mad. There are a bunch of other just ludicrous comments on that thread, but another one said where a woman posted that she knew a woman once that worked in the industry and said how dangerous it was and how it left her with PTSD. This is such a fucking crock of bullshit. This is not that this cannot happen in the industry, because any industry where you are dealing with the patriarchy is ultimately dangerous. Living your regular life among men is ultimately dangerous for women. But you know, what I think needs to be critiqued and analyzed a little bit more is about the other industries as well that we don't think about that can leave women traumatized and with PTSD, and not necessarily other industries. I should actually say just the other aspects to women's lives, whether they are working or, well, I think we're always working, that can leave them traumatized. Parenting, traumatizing as hell. Living with a man, particularly if you were married to him and like end up in an ugly divorce or separation kind of situation. And another one that I think does not get addressed enough is about those that work in the psychiatry field. No one is ever questioning people that are working in the psych field, whether or not they are traumatized by some of the things that they have learned from their clients, or even questioning how do they separate themselves emotionally and psychologically from their clients versus when they go out into the regular world and deal with their friends and their families and their lovers and things like that. But when it comes to the adult entertainment industry, these questions often come up, again, not because you actually give a fuck about PTSD happening to women, but because you actually hate the industry itself, because the only thing that you consider to be a part of the sex work industry is actually fucking. That's all you all think about. You don't realize how it is integrated into everyday life. You don't understand how intersectional it is, and you absolutely do not understand that everything is not just about intercourse. There's a lot of other things that go along with the industry that is about fighting for basic human rights that people are not exploring. And quite frankly, I'm tired of seeing it. So in order to not make this a 20-minute long video, I will end it there. But trust me, I have got the heat for every fucking body that wants to step into the kitchen. Thank you.